Hi, I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. This video I'm continuing my analysis into the logic of argumentation. I had to break the hypothetical syllogism into at least two parts. Yesterday I shot about 1 hour and 50 minutes worth of, and this is actually a little too tight. I shot like 1 hour and 50 minutes worth of video on the first half. Then I sort of subdivided the section. Today we're going to do section 3.1. So I'm not going to do a recap because we're really sort of in media res, right? We're in the middle of the action. So to do a bona fide recap would just be too much content information. Plus, I'm assuming that you're watching the videos in succession. So, you know, we'll just continue from there. So, section 3.1, and we're in the middle of hypothetical syllogism. This is introduction to the logic of argumentation. And this is section 3.1. And this is hypothetical syllogism. Okay. What I do want to do, well, yeah, what I'll do, hold on a second, start. What I do want to do is, well, I'll take that back. I do want to do a quick little recap, just conceptually. Remember that we extracted from modus tollens we derived from modus tollens the claim that we found in a citation, which said and correlated basically three things: increased groundwater pumping, the ability for increased groundwater pumping to support a larger population, and that larger population's sort of strain on the water table and thus decrease water table. So we find that in the citation. We extract that from modus tollens. We posit that in its generalized citation form. Conceptually, we don't do this in writing, right? But we posit that in its generalized notation form. We recognize that it needs to assume, I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit, right? Because you guys, I mean, we're like 3-4 hours in now, right? So I'm going to assume we're on that level. So what I recognize is the form of hypothetical syllogism, right? Hypothetical, and I can actually write it over here. Oh, all right, over here. Hypothetical syllogism assumes the form if A then B, if B then C, therefore if A then C. We recognize that, like modus tollens and modus ponens, this first aspect, right, this first bit, if A then B, we need to have what we extracted from the derived modus tollens in the previous argument. We need to have it in this form. We take out the generalized, we take out the citation. We generalize the citation. Citation initially has something like has been ... has been demonstrated, which means that the citation is context specific. The citation specifically speaks to one particular instance. We don't want this context specific sort of vernacular in our citation. We remove and delete that context specific and put in something more general, like may lead to or may something, right? And once we do that, we have a generalized claim. We then take that generalized claim and we formalize the generalized claim in terms of a conditional statement. We have our conditional statement. If this happens, then that happens. Once we have our conditional statement, then, you know, we just formalize the next conditional and so on, right? So that's sort of where we are right now. Quick recap. What I will do is right before 3.1, read the final. And what we finally ended up having was our first sentence. Now, this is not going to make it into the final, in the final format, right? This is how we begin our conceptualization theoretically. The truth of the matter is, when I actually sit down to write, I don't do any of this process. This all happens mentally, internally, right? I don't sit down and write a paragraph. Well, no, I guess maybe in a sense I do when I'm writing. No, I take that back. I actually do, but in a different version from this. So I'll be writing let's say I'm writing an article or a book chapter or even a book, and I'm on page 25 and I start writing the content for page 25. Later I get to page 75 and I'm writing content and I realize, holy crap, what I'm writing now, I can sort of infuse back in page 25. I'll go back and insert that information. But in no sense when I'm writing do I sort of write a rough draft. And I'm not knocking people to do this. This is an introduction just to get you, you'll intuitively create your own system. But I don't write out my sentence, then flesh out my sentence, then flesh it out again. I don't do that. It takes a lot of practice. Maybe when I first begun, I've written so many essays and so many assignments, I don't even remember all the stuff that I've written. And I've lost a lot of stuff because I used to use PCs. Not knocking PCs and all, but I mean, I've lost so much content information, it's insane. But the idea is, get in the habit of practicing this. The whole reason that I'm doing is to demonstrate that you can refine and create and construct an argument wholly from logic. Insofar as you do that, once you learn this process, once you see this, once I've proven that it can be done, it's on you to derive a method that works best for you. If you want to keep the method that I have, there's no problem. This method is really, really labor intensive for the fact that I have to make it labor intensive so that you can see every single step. I can't make any assumptions because I could lose you as an audience, those of you who want to stick around for the rest of this crap. But for those of you who, and I appreciate the fact that I would be doing this if no one was watching. It's part of my mania. But the idea is, those of you who are sticking around to watch this, I want you to get a sense of the structure: extraction, posit, application of new rule, derivation of new extraction, posit, and on and on and on. Okay, so let's read the example. If groundwater pumping is increased, obviously we recognize that's the initial antecedent one, then the likelihood for supporting population growth also increases. This is middle of page 15. Then the likelihood of supporting population growth also increases. This is consequence 1. If population growth increases, this is antecedent 2, then the likelihood of water pollution also increases. This is consequence 2. Therefore, if groundwater pumping increases, this is a reaffirmation of antecedent 1, then the likelihood for water pollution also increases. This is a reaffirmation of antecedent 2. Okay, now 3.1 specifically. What are the implications of that, right? What are the implications of example number 1? The following implication is derived from the logic that requires further elaboration. Again, you have to get in the process. I've done this multiple times. But I do recognize sort of the complexity of being able to do this. I look in the logic and I see what is an implication of this claim that I didn't initially think required further analysis, further investigation. Well, what requires further elaboration is the following. If population growth increases, then the likelihood for water pollution also increases. It follows in the logic, right? But what we're doing is we're asserting a correlation. This correlation is obviously between the increase in population growth and the effect that population growth has on increasing pollution in the water. I have to try and establish that. Remember, arbitrarily, just to sort of recap really quick, because hopefully we're on the same sort of wavelength. Just to recap really quick, I selected completely arbitrarily water pollution a few steps back. I could have selected anything. Remember, my hypothetical syllogism, I wanted to link water conservation with something that really didn't have much to do with water conservation, per se. And I could have taken it into sort of my natural route, which would have been like sort of genocide, because I recognize that insofar as we talk about population growth, well, there's an obvious connection there. What I also realize is, wait a second, if I'm talking about population growth, which we derived from modus tollens, then I can link population growth to basically anything, right? So water pollution was completely arbitrary. Now I'm going to see if I can find a link. I need to find some citation. I need to find some references. I need to find some, I need to make an appeal to authority that says, yes, Jason, this is right. Right? There is a direct correlation. I did research and here's what it is. So that's where we are. So remember, line 1 has already, let me cap this. Remember, line 1 has already been established and legitimized in an earlier citation. If groundwater pumping is increased, then the likelihood for supporting population growth also increases. We've already established that, right, in a citation. Thus, we still need line 2 for augmentation. And line 2 again is, if population growth increases, then the likelihood of water pollution also increases. So,